George Theophilus Walker was an American original, one of the most important American composers of his generation, and unquestionably one of the most important African American composers in history. Walker was a trailblazer and the breaker of many barriers. He was the first Black to study music at Oberlin College and the first African American to graduate from the Curtis Institute, studying piano with the great Rudolph Serkin. He was also the first to attain a doctoral degree in music composition from Eastman and the first to win a Pulitzer Prize in music composition for his work Lilacs. Walker concertized extensively as a pianist in the early 1950s, playing big concerti with major orchestras. He traveled throughout Europe under National Concert Artist Management. He began to write his major compositions at this time and earned a Fulbright to study music composition with the famed pedagogue Nadi Boulanger. Walker's grandmother had lived as a slave in the U.S., and the composer learned about this tragic history from her firsthand. She confided in him, "They did everything but eat us." Given the marketing realities of the time, it was simply too difficult for Walker to carve out a performing career for himself as a Black man. Academia was the best career choice for him, and he taught successfully at numerous institutions while carving out for himself a successful career as a composer. Since Walker was a great pianist, it stands to reason that he would have contributed significantly to the repertoire of our instrument. Let's focus then on his most important collection of works, his 5 solo piano sonatas. We'll begin with a look at the first 2 because they remain to this day the most important, the most popular, and often performed. And we're also going to take a look at the 5th, which is by a long shot the most recent. Walker's compositional style is wide-ranging. It's not easy to put him into a box. Sometimes he can be very gnarly and complicated, other times he can be light and lyrical and almost popular. It's not that easy to categorize. However, among composers of his time, Walker should be regarded as a traditionalist, one who values the musical sensibility of a Beethoven or Brahms. The piano sonata is therefore a good fit for his compositional outlook. He's an avid contrapuntist and a thoughtful musical architect, a firm believer in solid musical structures. His sonorous but linearly conceived textures are challenging to play, but they're mostly not showy. They often remind me of Brahms. Walker's first piano sonata dates from 1953, which is the period when he was most active as a performer. In creating a deliberately American kind of sound, he chose to emphasize the interval of a fourth, and you can hear this interval right from the beginning of the sonata. Walker is always fascinated by intervals. He likes their sonorous qualities, and his consistent focus on fourths pervades both the line and also the harmony. The beautiful and strikingly Samuel Barber-like second theme of this movement highlights Walker's lyrical side. But then notice how quickly these thorny, complicated contrapuntal lines take over and start imitating each other, making life very challenging for the pianist. second movement is a theme and variations, which is another one of Walker's preferred genres that also shows up in the opening movement of the second sonata. The theme shows Walker's more popular side. It is taken from the theme, "Bury Me Beneath the Willow Tree." In contrast to the spacious and generous first piano sonata, the second one is quite taut and condensed. Written as Walker's doctoral dissertation at Eastman, it has a preoccupation with formal consistency that almost reaches the point of obsession. Walker has also arranged this fine piano sonata as a work for two pianos. Right at the outset of the piece, Walker takes his attractive main theme, and imitates it in augmentation in the left. You can hear how the theme is very focused on the interval of a third. And you can hear this focus very consistently throughout the variations in the first movement and also in the second movement scherzo. The expressive and tragic third movement highlights the interval of a third in both the harmony and the melody. The finale's main theme seems to strip everything down just to thirds and sixths in two-part counterpoint. The piece wraps up with a cyclic reinterpretation of the opening theme of the first movement. One is tempted to credit Walker's formal control, almost obsession, to come with his work with Nadi Boulanger, but recall, his Fulbright came actually after the composition of these two sonatas. She quickly realized his compositional talent and permitted him to skip over the kinds of contrapuntal exercises that she always assigned her students, even the ones who have become household names. The Fifth Sonata is by far the most recent of Walker's piano sonatas, composed in 2003 when he was 81 years old, just about 20 years after his Fourth Sonata. A piece of only 6 minutes duration, it takes concentration and terseness to a whole new level. One of the new characteristics in Walker's style heard in this sonata is the use of octatonic harmony. That's this scale, alternating whole and half steps. And it's a recall of the sound world of composers like Scriabin, Stravinsky, and Messiaen. The other characteristic is a certain flexibility of rhythm, which is heard in this example through a lot of meter changes, marked tempo changes, and frequent ritardandi. Focuses on the dissonance of the minor second, whether heard as a minor second, a major seventh, or as a minor ninth. More minor seconds. And then the main theme comes melodically as thirds. The consistency of his use of intervallic material can be heard in his use of lyrical material, in a cadenza-like virtuosic passage in octaves and chords, particularly at the dramatic close of the work.